As we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad, and the day-to-day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard for us to see our way through. Beyond the norm and mundane and where unscripted dreams live, join us for thought-provoking discussions to help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream Podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. So today's episode is literally titled Power, and basically we're going to talk about how it corrupts. So that's just like our focus. The first touch point I'll go ahead and talk about is basically power dynamics. So when you talk about power, you need to understand it. And power dynamics and human nature, that's it's very important to understand to really like grasp the whole concept of power and what we're really talking about here as far as like a not even a higher level conversation, just a conversation that people will actually can comprehend and take in and actually process what's going on. So when you think about power dynamics, right? Every power can be negative and positive, and it can impact anything on the negative and positive aspect if it's not managed properly. So it's not good, it's not necessarily bad. It's whatever you make of it. That's literally what it is. And so when you think of that, let's paint a picture here like people with power. So power tends to like fill or take up space, I would like to say per se. And while those who may appear to be lesser than or inferior, they may become disengaged, lost, or completely silenced, right? Versus if you're a person in power, you know what I'm saying? You're kind of like, you filling up that space. So you're less likely to fall on the wayside because you're the one that's in control. You're the one that's running the ship. When you think of power, there's usually two things here. The first thing is domination, what I just explained on the back end of power. Domination, basically, like only a select few are able to really run or regulate a function, you name it, function, operation, organization, club, whatever. They set the standards for everything, and everyone else is supposed to fall in line. So when you think of the second part, that's empowerment. That's pretty much our platform and what we're doing. People are more so focused on sharing, healing, and bringing awareness to the unknowing. So basically, just giving knowledge, giving people game that they could use based on their situations or circumstances. That's more so from the hip that we fire from. So those are typically like the 2 points there, the good and the bad, and they're not necessarily good or bad. But before I actually go further into that, because that's gonna go down to a rabbit hole if I continue, is there anything you want to add as far as like power and how you should probably process it, Marcus?
Power is like currency to me,
Yeah.
and some people have more. You just have more power. So if you've ever, if you ever have worked for somebody or had to take, like, even if you have parents, like they have I think majority of cases, your parents have a little bit of power over you. They dictate what you do, what you don't do. At a certain point, you might decide, like, hey, I'm not going to, listen to whatever they are telling you. But for the most part, if they're telling you what to do, you're probably gonna do it, and it's it's understanding that, like, outside of those dynamics, just understanding that there's also understanding like what like that power can. So you think about like parents who take advantage of their kids or something, their kids do all this crazy stuff just because they had that authority. Or you look at circumstances where, people like in an employment type space and your boss is just like they're power hungry and they take advantage or they try to take advantage of you at every step because they know they can. And most people don't have the ability to just walk away in these circumstances. So, and then understanding also just like humans, like human nature, just understanding that like they're just like if you've ever been in a position of authority, like I've been in a position of like authority since 15 years. Now I've been in like various positions where I could dictate if a person got hired fired, accepted, rejected. I could dictate. I really had the authority to dictate like how somebody day actually is. Like I can give them something to do that I know they don't want to do. Like I could literally like make if I wanted to, I could make somebody else's day miserable. Now, some people they see that they're like, oh yeah, they enjoy having that authority over people. And that's the thing. Like some people, like for me, I understand it. It's just a for me, like when I'm in those positions, for me, it's just like, all right, I'm in charge, but that also means I'm responsible for the success and the failure of other people. Not I'm responsible for giving people orders and telling people what to do and all that stuff.
Right.
I'm more concerned about like if they fail, that's on me. If they succeed, like it's on me, because I'm setting them up. I'm either setting them up for success or I'm setting them up for failure. It's one or the other. But I had the power to do that. But for some people, it's just like almost like I'm just gonna take advantage of everything that I have, like that's been afforded to me. And I'm just gonna like impart my thoughts and my wills and wishes on other people and just take advantage of that and exploit that. So I think it goes it can go either other way, but I think the thing is just understanding like humans, like just people in general, and understanding that like, yeah, you get a whiff of that, that authority and that power, and you see how other people will react to you. Like that can have I don't know, I've seen it like intoxicate people because they think they're better. You're not. You think you're better, but you're not. You're just in a different position, in a different hierarchy. But outside of the lines, like it's just 1v1. Y'all just like regular people. I think that's really what I think will just kind of like just like when you open up the conversation, that's what really comes to mind.
Man, I think that's great because I think you touched on some additional stages as far as power and how you look at it. The very first that you kind of touched on would be from a physical standpoint, like kind of like barbaric when you think about it, but that is a form of power. And that's probably the one that comes to mind is physical prowess, like dominance. Am I bigger than you? Okay. So if I'm bigger than you know what I'm saying? I'm going to use that to my ability to take your money. I'm going to take everything you got. You know, there are people out there that do that. And then you got the other level of power where it's wealth, which is the biggest one. Physical, you only can get so far, but with wealth, you can always find somebody that could knock off the person that's physically trying to come for you because you got the money, you got the resources. Or maybe you could work out a deal with someone that's trying to extort you or try to bully you by just paying them off, just being real. And then you got the next one where it's a conglomerate, like it's the government. So that's supposed to be a formal law that everyone is supposed to abide by. So policing at its finest. So there's a few levels when it comes to power. Just because you might be powerful in one aspect, whether it's a physical standpoint, like you're the strongest person in your area or your neighborhood, that's not enough. You might have all the money in America, you might be a billionaire, but you still gotta abide by the laws of the government, however that may work. So you're gonna always have somebody to answer to, is basically what I'm trying to say when it comes to power. But as far as how it corrupts, though, that's another thing. But moving on to the next point, man, about realizing that too much power feeds into an ego thing. I feel like that's more so like, I feel like that's more geared towards, or you can gear that towards, or pivot it towards people with wealth, man. Like you see that more so with people with wealth, just because, they just have that prowess over you. Like I said, like if you have enough money, you can, in most cases, afford an alternative to get out of any situation if you got enough money. Marcus, how do you feel about that as far as too much power and how, people let that go to their head?
So I was watching this documentary recently. Very interesting. Not being from the states, it's different. Like soccer, football. Football is
Yeah.
called. Is it's different. Like the way the game is ran, like the politics around it is different. So I was watching this FIFA documentary, and it was just going through like all these bribes and the votes, but they're like real open about it. I was like, man, this is weird. Like how they just talk about it, but I mean, they were just kind of open about like how people pay. Like you're essentially like paying for votes, like quid pro quo, but out in the open, like things that like we're used to seeing that. Like that's that download. Like that's that low key stuff around here where we're from. But the way they're talking about it, it's like, yeah, you know that you taking payments and all this other stuff, and they're just open about it. And then you have one person in office, and then they just replace it, like replace that person with another person, and they crooked, and then it's another person, and they're crooked. But it's like everybody. But what was so weird about it in watching that is that everybody understood what was happening, and they was like, yeah, like we're gonna come out here, give this money. Like there was an incident where they say like they were just bringing people up to the hotel room and just giving them packets of money for votes, and everybody was like, yeah, this is what we do. It's normal. I never seen that. I never seen that. So think about it if like you somebody like, think about it like this, like, if you live in America, and you, like, watch the NBA, you think about, like, the old commissioner of NBA, like, David Stern and now it's, like, Adam Silver, and, like, Adam Silver just, like, was at a hotel, and he was just letting all the owners of these city like, wherever the teams are in the cities, and they were just coming out and just, like, giving them money to have an all-star game in their city, and they just talked about it, like, on the documentary like it was normal, and it was cool, and it was just, like, a regular way to do business. Like, that's how this FIFA stuff went down. It was crazy. It was crazy, but when you think about, like, having that power and how you understand that these people who operated in these different countries who had these like, who really were the representatives and they controlled these votes of, like, who did what and what funding went where, it was really one of these situations where, like, yeah, you can take advantage of that and you can exploit it. And the fact that you were in a position where you felt or you were so important that people just followed you and they did what you wanted regardless. See, that's like, listen, real power is when people do what you want them to do and they don't want to do it. They do it because they have to, and not because they want to. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, that's real power is when people just like, I don't have a choice. Like, I don't have a
Perfect.
choice but to do,
Yeah, I
you
was
know?
gonna say, perfect example, think about consumers or General Electric. Like, you know what I'm saying? You gotta have your lights on, right? So if they raise up that price, what you gonna do?
Yeah. But that's it there. That's all I kind of had on just like the FIFA thing and like kind of like ego. That's all I had there. Was you have anything else to add to that?
Nah, man, just joking around.
All right. So just so key takeaways, like for me, just on my end. Like if you when you're looking at this power stuff, so if anybody was to ask me, like what are the two most important things that you do day to day, right? Mindset. I say the first thing is like humility, and then the second is managing my ego. Which you know what I think is kind of lost on ego sometimes is that like if you let your ego get away from you, like you could lose because there's one thing. It's one thing to have confidence in yourself, but it's another thing to think that you can't lose. Like those are there's two different things. There's nothing wrong with believing in yourself and thinking that you can do whatever is capable. But it's another thing to thinking that you're so good that you can't be knocked off. Like if you ever watched Troy, that movie, great movie. Like Achilles,
Yep.
the man, he's spectacular, but he was not like, I mean, the man wasn't invincible, is what I'm trying to say, and that's kind of what I'm getting at is that you can. I think that's really like the perfect example too. If you've ever watched that movie, you understand the story. Is that I mean that's why you hear like the Achilles heel, pretty much. But yeah, if you let things go to your head and you don't understand that there's a possibility that there's someone out there that is maybe stronger than you, bigger than you, maybe a little bit more wealthy. Wealth's a different game. I'm not even going to get into that. That's a well game right there. But just being mindful and understanding that like there's a cost of being in power and that puts a target on your back too. So yeah, you might be running the show, but then there's somebody that's watching you looking for an opportunity to just take over. Or they're waiting to catch you slipping. Or it's possible that you're so content with your power that you don't realize that there's someone else just trying to run your spot and they're just working every day to come out on top. And because you're at the top, like you think you're untouchable. And that's why I say the ego piece is a big part of like just that power and that give and take there. But that's all I have on that.
Well, I think that was a great reference, man. You had Troy in your head, and I actually really love that movie, man. I might watch that tonight, actually. That's a great movie. The whole time when you were talking, man, what movie came to mind to me was an old Spike Lee joint, as they would say, is Mo Better Blues. And basically, anybody that's familiar with Mo Better Blues, it's Denzel Washington. He's the lead role in that movie. And pretty much this guy had life at his fingertips. Like whatever he wanted, he pretty much could get away with it. He was a musician. And then an incident happened to him where he lost his skill set. Like he was no good. He couldn't really be as great as he was as a musician. So it kind of brought him down to size. Another great one that's more recent, Marvel, Doctor Strange. If you watch the first Doctor Strange, another person that was the top of their game, had a lot of power, and he got into that car accident and he was no longer good at what he used to do as a surgeon. He had to find another way. So, in order to stay on top, we're always going to have pitfalls, but this is one of those pitfalls that you want to avoid because it's a great chance that you may not come back. Just imagine all the work you did to get to where you are, and it would be terrible for you to kind of fall that way. That's why I think power is just a very, very responsible thing. Like, you got to understand the value of it, of course. Actually, you don't have to. Everyone understands the value of power. But the whole point is, do you know how to utilize it? Have you been trained properly for that? Some people have been trained to manage it. Other people, they've learned on the whim. And hopefully you're one of those people where you got the right people around you that kind of keeps it structured. Or maybe you give somebody that you know that you might not necessarily need, but you keep them around because they keep you structured, they keep you aligned, they keep you in check. How many people do you know like might be well off, but they got that one friend that might be broke and might be making jokes back and forth like this person's basically living off their fortune, but they got an understanding there. That person keeps them around because that person is like not necessarily their biggest critic, but that person is one of those people where they put things into perspective for them. And they're like, okay, I can always depend on this person because this person's always going to let me know if I'm if I'm tripping. So it's very important to have certain resources around you where you can perform at the same level or even better that you currently are doing to get to this point. So just never underestimate how ego can easily cloud your judgment. That's why it's very important to have those resources. I'm just going to conclude with this episode. Think that has served this purpose. I appreciate you guys listening and on to the next one.